I'm Liat. Okay, so good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. So my name is Manal Totry-Jubran. I'm from the law faculty of Bar-Ilan University. I would say that I am one out of 5 Palestinian scholars in my university, which constitute about 500 professors. So it has been really challenging being a faculty member and a university and a professor at the university in these very troubling times. So I'm really happy to open this first panel. I'm one of the organizing committee led by our fellow employee. So I'm also very curious. I wrote a little bit about this subject, and I'm trying to write again under all the challenges that has been going on during the past 2 years. Maybe I will have a little bit of time to talk about it as well. So I'm very happy to open up the first panel, which is titled "The Campus at Wartime: How Universities Manage Wartime Tensions." Originally we had 4 speakers, but due to challenges of freedom of speech, we're going to have only 3 speakers. The fourth speaker, I would say very shortly that he decided not to speak out of his fear. So we have a little bit more time for the speakers. So we have a little bit more time for the speakers. Instead of 17 minutes, we will have 20 minutes. And then we will have about 25-30 minutes of discussion. So I think that we will start with, I will present each speaker and then move ahead. So our first speaker is Sharon Weiss, my dear friend from Tel Aviv University. She will be talking about navigating between freedom of expression and community cohesion in academia during war and organizational perspective. So Sharon is the director of the Equity, Diversity and Community Commission at Tel Aviv University. She was a Wexner, did I say it right? Wexner Fellow at Harvard University. Sharon previously served as an attorney and the executive director of the Association for Civil Rights in Israel, where she litigated landmark public interest cases on civil and social rights. She founded and headed the Corporate Social Responsibility Clinic at the Academic Center of Law and Business, and served at the Ministry of Economy at the Tel Aviv Central Israel Region Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. So, Sharon. So you have 20 minutes.
20 minutes.
20. Yeah, because our first speaker, you skipped the introduction.
One of the speakers.
Unfortunately, cancelled.
Speaking of freedom of speech in Israel 2026. Hi, everybody. Good morning. I'm Sharon from Weiss. Thank you, Manal, for presenting me. Navigating between freedom of expression and community cohesion in academia during war and organizational perspective. This presentation is based on an article I wrote with my colleagues, Tami Rubelivchitz from Hebrew U and Yael Ben David from NYU, based on a true story or Tel Aviv University experience from October 7th and on. So I'll start with basics. Freedom of expression, I mean the whole conference is about it. Cornerstone of academia, open debate, essential for developing critical thinking, scientific advancement and research. I'm heading the Diversity Commission, and we're speaking about excellence in universities and academia versus diversity. Diversity enriches both intellectual complexity and students' understanding, but also, however, in times of violent conflicts, positions tend to radicalize, escalating discourse within universities. And this is what we all experience in this escalation war, whatever you want to call it, from October 7th. So this is the basic, we're all on the common ground of everything. I want to we'll refer later on, pressure from different groups may suppress minority opinions. And remember this in the beginning, I'll get back to it in the end. Self-censorship faculty and students. So this is the theory, we're all on the same baseline. I want to dig into the numbers. Israeli academia in 2015, I'm speaking about the Arab minority, the representation of this population in the general population is about 20%. 2015, less than 10% of the students were belonging to the Arab Palestinian minority citizens of Israel. In 2025, we went up to 17%. Okay, great, wonderful numbers. Research shows that the mere presence of these groups in a shared academic environment is not sufficient. We're not speaking about numbers, we're speaking about belonging, creating meaningful connection between them. Moreover, external conflicts may generate distance, tension, and lower willingness to engage. So this is the factual basis. I'm going now to October 7th. It's not a coincidence that the photo shows no students. It's something to remember that on October 7th, campuses were empty. Okay, it was a semester break between the years. No one was in the campus, and it's really important to this discussion because the social media became a central arena for the disputes among the students. And we as an institution started receiving complaints from October 7th, complaints from different students about other students, usually from the other group, Jews versus the Arab minority, about support of terrorism, incitement, and online bullying. Alleged. So just that you'll have perspective, we in Tel Aviv University between October 7th and January 14th, we got 92 complaints. The blue are complaints from the Jewish population, the red from the Palestinian population of Israeli citizens. And we can see that more representation for the Jews, and the bulk of the complaints was in the beginning, the first 2 weeks. Okay, later on we had that. So the first dilemma was within the university. Who is responsible to deal with these complaints? Some of them go to the provost office, some of them to the president, some of them to the general director. How do we deal with it as an institution? It's a huge institution. We're about 30,000 people in our community. So the decision was that the Commission for Equity, Diversity and Community will deal with it. The commission, I'm the director of the commission, but the head of the commission is Professor Aviv, who is the vice president. Okay, now it's really important in terms of structure because this is the cross-organizational positioning, having an overview, one voice for the whole institution. Second thing, that both Professor Aviv and myself are legal experts, allegedly, about human rights. We're both working for the Association for Civil Rights to some extent, and we thought it was important. And the third thing is a diverse staff. The fact that in our staff we're both Jews and Arabs made, I think, huge difference. bottom line, and I think this is my message for the whole, how do you deal with conflicts, is the pre-existing organizational infrastructures and experience enable the office to expand its role during crisis. So you do need, I mean, was not based only about gut feelings, and we saw it in other institutions that decisions were made instantly. Students were expelled. There were lots of things happening in the first week that was a disaster in Israel I don't know anything about any of you, but it was a disaster to all of us, okay? There was a war, there was a massacre, we were at home, there were sirens, everything was shaking. The fact that we did have some infrastructure made a difference. And it means, I think, to institutions and general organizations that you need to have on tranquil times, you need to have infrastructure in order to deal with things later. So this was one dilemma that was solved. It was decided that the commission will deal with all the complaints. Another dilemma, which has to do a lot with this conference, was the authority of Tel Aviv University to regulate virtual spaces. I mean, how do we justify, okay, our decision, our authority to deal with personal? As you can see, Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, Twitter. Traditionally, community boundaries are physical. Okay, we are here, and these are the boundaries. What are we doing when it's online somewhere? We decided, okay, we debated. It was not, we didn't take it for granted. We asked ourselves, what are we doing with it? There was a public legal debate with two views. Barak, recognize you. Professor Barak Medina from Hebrew claimed that higher education institutions lack authority to monitor or sanction personal social media accounts. Exercising such authority risks reproducing social power imbalances, especially against Arab students, and requires cultural linguistic expertise often lacking. As I saw in the graph I showed you before, Professor Medina was right. I mean, we saw the powers. I mean, more Jews were complaining. Okay, our minority probably felt less safe to appeal to the institution. So this is one view. The other view was by Professor Neta Ziv, the vice president of Tel Aviv University, saying in the social media era, campus boundaries are blurred. Academic communities have protected interest in ensuring a shared space, even during and after the war. University should be seen as a community of belonging, with members expected to act in ways that sustain academic communal life. So here is the balance, okay? We're speaking about freedom of speech and the community life. How do we balance? This is the essence of the article. As you can imagine, Tel Aviv University followed Professor Ziv's view. And what we did in action is practical steps in balancing freedom of speech and community safety. So the first thing we did is establishing diverse WhatsApp group, and for deciding. And in this group there were academic staff and administrative staff and Jews and Arabs. So a lot of complaints that we weren't sure about, we brought to this group because we were all sitting at home. Remember, the campus was empty, and we're speaking about how to deal with it. And the cultural translation and interpretation was really important. I'll give you an example. There was a sentence from the Quran. So first, I don't know to read Arabic, so this, translation to Hebrew. But what is the context? One of our members is a professor, and he's also a religious Muslim person. He could give us the context, and this was really important. And the third thing, and this is speaking about the infrastructure, is the classification of complaints. No gut. It's not that I feel so and I feel so, and we were all very edgy at that time. Okay, we said, okay, We do have guidelines, and we are following the guidelines. We are working very organized. So the criteria, we had criteria for addressing complaints. First is community membership. Some of the, as you will see later, some of the complaints had nothing to do with the university. Okay? We had no authority. These are our boundaries. Second is the timeline. Statements had to be posted October 7th and on. I don't know if some of you remember, there were some videos that became viral, like demonstration in Antin Square near Tel Aviv University, became viral, and people were saying, look, a week after October 7th, the Palestinian minority of students of Tel Aviv University are demonstrating now with Palestinian flag, which was false. I mean, these were videos from a couple of years ago from Nakba legal demonstration. The campus was empty, but it became viral and we said, okay, we are referring to complaints only from October 7th. Evidence required, okay, we wanted to see a screenshot, and it was really crucial because some of the complaints were false. Okay? And the due process, the right to reply was upheld. The university would not function as a kangaroo court, Beidin Sadiq. This was really crucial. In other institutions, we saw that students were expelled, and later on, the institution apologized for expelling. The violations by categories of the complaints we got: incitement to racism, support for terror organization, violation of freedom of, allegedly, violation of freedom of, freedom of expression, spreading false information, call for violence, call for boycott the university, and other. So there were a lot of complaints. We got, the way we worked, we got it to our WhatsApp, we looked at it, we thought about it, we had debate, and then we decided what to do later on. The way we worked was the accord model. Okay, I'll start with the not checked. 37 were not checked because lack of evidence or no connection to university. So a lot of people were complaining, but sometimes it has to do neither with our students nor with our staff. It has nothing to do with university beyond our boundaries. The green were easy, no violation occurred. So people were complaining, my classmate said so and so. We checked and we said so and so is no violation of freedom of expression. People should express themselves. Okay, this is the majority of the complaints. Red is, we, the commission, recommended, okay, to the institution whether to continue with the legal process. So 3, a formal disciplinary process was initiated. I want to focus on the orange because it brings me back to the balance between the freedom of speech and the cohesive of the community. So there was no legal significant violation, but the complaint was transferred to the faculty for educational process. So we felt that it's not a clear cut. I'll give a few examples. One is denial of the massacre of October 7th. It's not a violation in terms of legal violation, but I need to be back to the class and sit together with my classmates. I went to a few funerals. I mean, somebody sitting next to me saying it never happened. So we wanted to speak about it and to solve it. There was one Jewish student who submitted 10 complaints about her classmates, only our classmates. We spoke with her, one of her professors and myself, we were sitting and speaking with her, and she said, I'm sorry, I was really, I was anxious, I didn't know what to do, I wanted to do something, and this is what I did, I realized it was a mistake. Okay, there was a young student, Muslim, religious, that brought up a sentence from the Quran that some of her classmates interpreted as calling for violence, which we learned from our cultural group that has to do nothing with violence, but speaking with her, explaining her what does the context me. So I think it was a very important process going through this. So balancing freedom of speech and community safety, in retrospective, we had achievements. The campus is a safe space for learning. There was no violence incidents in Tel Aviv University. We managed to bring stability, consistency, due process for all, and positioning the commission as someone who can handle with this complex situation. However, open question, was it a true balance or silencing process? Okay, I think there is a chilling effect. How can an organizational decision makers achieve the right balance, whatever is right? So returning, we went back to campus on December 31st. The beginning of the year was deferred, and we moved from virtual to physical. How did we prepare for this? So the complaint handling model, we continue. We adapted the core traffic light model for classroom settings. Faculty training, most faculty through a core center workshop. 700 of 1,100 faculty in Tel Aviv University volunteered to join online training in Tel Aviv University, how to enter the class. As a teacher, I can say that it is frightening to some extent. What do? Enter the class and speak about nothing that happened? Do you dig in? I mean, not everybody teaches law and society, right? I mean, it's... So we try to give some tools about it. We established a voluntary forum, engaging a Jewish in our faculty for presence across informal spaces. On the first week, 900 professors and teachers signed up to stand in the gates. Okay, everybody for 2 hours and give chocolates. It was not about the chocolates, okay? It was the presence, the community, the fact that we are there. And to be honest, we were scared that the first week will bring violence, and we managed to go over it. And the policy distribution published in the new freedom of expression policy across campus. Reflections, positive outcomes, mechanism developed, helped restrain false complaints and prevented the campus from becoming a site of escalation. As I said, 0 violence cases. However, most complaints came from Jewish students, less from Arab students. Okay, these are challenges. And there are also unintended consequences. Despite efforts to protect the free speech, I think there is a chilling effect. This refers to what, Barak, what you said in the beginning. There's a chilling effect emerged leading to silence or self-censorship, also observed in classroom. This is an outcome I feel until now with our students. Future challenges, recentering free expression while maintaining a respectful and safe environment for diverse opinion. So that's
Thank you so much. I have so many questions.
questions in the end?
And comments. At the end, yes. So I'm sure that there are a lot of questions for Sharon's excellent presentation, so we will leave them until the end. Our next speaker is Idit Finkelstein from Ona Academic College. The title of her presentation is Teaching in Wartime on Culturally Diverse Campuses, Digital Exposure, Academic Freedom and Institutional Interests. So Idit is the head of the MA program in organizational consulting at Ono Academic College. She teaches organizational psychology and consulting. Her research focuses on multicultural organizational consulting, a lot of organizational consulting, human resource development, and the intersection of law, education, and regulation. She has published scholarly work on multicultural teaching competence and students' perceptions of teaching, and wrote her doctoral dissertation on adolescents' adjustment to parental divorces. The floor is yours.
Hello everyone. Hello. Nice to meet you.
20 minutes.
20 minutes. Okay.
And I'm strict, sorry. Okay, good.
Okay, I will start. זה לא מוריד את המצגת. אוקיי. Hello. I would like to begin not with research, but with lived reality. A reality which every member of academic staff may, in principle, say almost anything as long as it does not amount incitement. And yet, at the very same time, any statement may quickly turn into a public event, circulate on social media, and fundamentally alter classroom relations, perceptions of authority, and the sense of safety. This is a paradox that becomes particularly acute in times of war. From a legal perspective, freedom of expression is broad. From social and institutional perspectives, it becomes fragile and risky and deeply exposed. From a legal standpoint, this is particularly revealing moment. The law provides wide normative protection, but it does not offer academic staff a clear roadmap for navigating situations of extreme sensitivity. The gap between legal permission and lived risk is the core concern of my talk today. My lecture focuses precisely on this tension between what is legally permissible to say, what feels practically possible to say, and the gap between institutional commitments to freedom of expression and what actually unfolds in the classroom. Okay. Today, it is difficult to describe higher education institutions as isolated ivory towers. On the contrary, especially in Israel, academic institutions emphasize their deep social engagement and public role. Alongside their classical mission of research and teaching, the campus functions as a hybrid public space, simultaneously public and private, educational and political, institutional and digital. In conditions of prolonged war, this hybridity becomes especially pronounced. The classroom becomes a site where not only texts are encountered, but also national narratives, collective emotions, and lived trauma. The conflict does not enter the classroom only through curricular content. It enters through identities sitting side by side, through emotions of fear, threat, anger, and loss. And crucially, through normative expectations placed on academic staff, when to speak, when to remain silent, and what will be considered a legitimate position. In this sense, the academic classroom becomes a de facto legal social arena, even if it is not formally defined as such in law. A space in which every statement evaluates not only by its content, but by its institutional, reputational, and social conceptions. Against this background, I briefly draw on an empirical anchor, a qualitative study that I recently published with a colleagues based on an in-depth interviews with academic staff teaching on culturally diverse campuses in Israel. The findings illustrate how academic staff experience teaching as action within a field of risk, where legal boundaries are relatively clear, yet institutional and social boundaries remain strangely and ambiguous. From a legal perspective, this reflects a condition that might be described as expanded rights coupled with regulatory absence. Rights formally exist, but institutional clarity and protective mechanisms are far less developed. One of the most silent patterns that emerged in these perceptions of teachers as a form of ongoing risk management Academic staff describe everyday moment in which they ask themselves, should I respond to a highly sensitive or politically loaded comment? Should I open a discussion or bring it close? Will my words be independent as taking sides? Will my silence be interpreted as an identification with one position? Extra campus events, sirens, attacks, viral videos, social media posts enter the classroom in real time. Academic staff are required to describe without perceptions, without guidelines, and without clear institutional backing. They act with the awareness that every word may leave the classroom and be detached from its context. From a normative perspective, the risk here does not stem from violating the law, but from uncertainty regarding the system response. Will there be a complaint? Will the institutional offer protection? Will restraint be interpreted as a failure or educational responsibility? In this sense, teaching is no longer only pedagogical practice. It becomes a practice of constant caution. It is important to stress there is no single academic stance here. Some faculty members emphasize the importance of open discussion, especially in times of crisis. Others prioritize perspective, a stable learning environment. The same academic staff member may say, I believe deeply in freedom of expression, and at the same time, I am not willing to risk the classroom. This ambivalence is not contradiction. It reflects the structural complexity of teaching in wartime. This ambivalence is not normative failure of individuals, but the outcome of an institutional structure that does not clearly define boundaries of responsibility. At this point, the lens intersectionality becomes essential. Intersectionality theory reminds us that academic identity is never singular. It is shaped at the intersection of nationality, language, religion, gender, and professional status. Academic staff from minority groups described heightened vulnerability. A single statement may be perceived as representative rather than individual, with direct implications for professional legitimacy and public exposure. By contrast, academic staff from majority groups often describes pressure to perform balance and neutrality, even when they hold in clear personal positions. From a legal social perspective, this means that freedom of expression is not exercised evenly. The very same statement may carry different levels of risk, depending on the speaker's social positioning. The digital environment interferes all these dynamics. A statement posted on social media outside campus boundaries. It offers perceived by students as part of the academic persona. The boundary between private, public, and professional experience become blurred. The result is a familiar pattern. The law permits, the institutional remains silent, and academic staff self-censor. This raises a fundamental legal question. What is the scope of institutional responsibility when lawful off-campus expression materially affected the learning process and classroom climates? I would like to conclude with 3 normative claims. First, academic freedom is undermined not only by excessive regulation, but also by its absence. Where not clear policy exists, responsibility is shifted in individuals. Second, self-censorship is not a matter of personal weaknesses or timidity. It is predictable outcome of legal and institutional ambiguity, in which risk is individualized rather than government. Third, and crucially, if freedom of expression is to be genuinely protected, higher education institutions cannot rely solely on declarative values. They must articulate clear, transparent, and protective frameworks that define responsibility, offer institutional backing, and allow academic staff to teach without fear. Only then can freedom of expression move from a formal right to a lived academic practice. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So our next speaker was supposed to be Dr. Muhammad Khalili, but he will not be here. So our last but not least two speakers are Merav Salomon and Liat Brix Etgar from the Bezalel Academy. And their presentation's title is How to Sit on a Barrel of Explosives, Play with Matches and Not Blow Up. A framework for try not to blow up when it's not sitting on a barrel of explosives. A framework for a diverse, free, safe, and vibrant art and design campus. So Merav Salomon is a professor at the Department of Visual Communication at the Bezalel Academy of Art and Design in Jerusalem, where she serves as the head of the illustration studies from 2007 to 2018. She is also a member of the Art and Design Teaching Center at Bezalel. She is also an international illustrator and a book artist who published over 15 books. Her work has won her many international prizes, such as the UK Association of Illustrators Gold Medal for Best Illustrated Book in 2013, the CA Magazine Illustration Annual Excellence Award in 2016, the Society of Illustrators NY 55th Illustration Annual Gold Medal 2015. Liat Brix Etgar is the Vice President of Bezalel Academy of Art and Design, where she also heads the Art and Design Teaching Center and teaches at the Unit for Civil Architecture and teaches at the Civic Architecture Unit, which interlaces design, studio, political theory, and activism. She obtained her master's in philosophy from Tel Aviv University and as an architect and associate in Peru. You have 20 minutes, and then we will open the floor for discussions.
Good morning. I apologize for the long introduction. We were punished not sending our short bio. So I'm Liat, I'm the Vice President. This is the only thing I'm doing right now. And Merav is the head of the Teaching Center of Bezalel. And all the other things were true. We didn't prepare a research, actually, but just want to share with you our experience during those years. And I thought when it started, those years that we are talking about it, and I think that one of the answers in Bezalel is 2021 with the operation of Shomer Chomot in Gaza, and I think this was an experience that helped us to build our infrastructure, that helped us a lot during these 2 years. And what we actually wanted to present is how we redesign those infrastructures and redesign our policy in the last 2 years. So maybe I will start with our core questions would be what is our core mission, the core mission of the Academy, and especially art and design academies in these disruptive times. And I don't have to explain, but in times of poly crisis where multiple crises worsen one another, creating a permanent state of uncertainty. What could be our role as an art and design academy, which is a kind of, I think it's a little bit different from universities, and because we are very specific in the political context. And in times of democratic erosion and threats to the liberal values that shape our own institutions, what could be our role? And the second question is, how can we create infrastructure for shared space and shared life on the campus during wartime? And I mean during all these conflicts. I think it's constant wartime in Israel right now. And how can we generate social responsibilities, political imagination, agency, and hope for this young generation during this time? I think we feel that we have less hope, less feeling of competence to do things in the world to influence the society. So I will say something about Bezalel. We are the oldest higher institution in Israel. We started in 1906. We are independent public academy only for art and design disciplines. We have 15 academic programs, undergraduate and postgraduate, and also 3 undergraduate programs in ultra-Orthodox branch for women that studied architecture, fine arts, and visual communication. We have right now 2,500 students, so we are not very big in the context of the public institutions in Israel, but we have 550 faculty because we teach in very, very small classes. So this is our community. And before 3 years, we moved to our new campus in the heart of Jerusalem. We were before the campus, which is the periphery of Jerusalem, next to the Hebrew University. And now we are, you can see in this picture that we are part of the Russian compound in the heart of Jerusalem. But if you are looking at the map, we are just 5 minutes from the old city and in the center of all the conflicts of Jerusalem. Because next to us we have the police detention center, we have the courthouse. People who arrive to both of those places stay in our space actually to wait. We are close to the city hall and very close to the ultra-Orthodox neighbors like Mea Shearim. And so we are in the city center, which is the last space, I think, in Jerusalem that people from different communities meet. And we feel that part of our role in the city center is to be the shared space for all the communities, not just for our students and the faculty, but for all the other communities. So this is I think extreme diverse ecosystem. I think it's ecosystem of deep differences and conflicts. And our students and staff, but mostly our students, arriving from very different backgrounds. And I think that we saw in the last 2 years that we have different experience of what's happening, and I think even different ideas of what is true, what are the facts. Okay, they are coming with different stories to this very intimate ecosystem. In Israel, they grew up in different K-12 systems, so they didn't meet before, and their first meet in the higher education institution. And 10% of our students are Palestinians, most of them arriving from East Jerusalem, so they are even not citizens of Israel, but they study in Bezalel. In some of our classes, 30% of the class is Palestinian. It's very varied between the departments. And unlike other higher education institutions, the meeting in Bezalel is very intimate because most of our students have their private workstation in the campus. They actually live in the campus, and they study together or have their workspaces together in a class in this size, and they are sitting next to each other for many hours a day. And I think that they develop very close friendship, but also frictions that are much more tense in these last 2 years. And another aspect is that during their studies, the students are engaged in a process of becoming. They are not just studying something, they're becoming something. This is why they are choosing to study art and design, and they're examining their own identity and untying and tying new parts of their own identity. And they bring to the classes their inner world and their living environments. And a unique aspect of Bezalel, I think, is the requirement from our students to take a political stand and to foster a stand of responsibility and engagement. So many of the briefs they have ask them to say something about the situation and to act. And we believe that art education is political. You can't do it without being political. You can't be an artist or designer or an architect without being political. And it's part of their own education, and it makes everything very hurt during this time. And the shared space in Bezalel is unusual, I think, in the current political climate in Israel, but it's a delicate issue, very delicate issue. And it takes I think, tremendous effort from everybody to keep this level of complexity in these recent years. And I think that we felt before the 7th of October that we are actually doing good, that we are in progress of understanding how to create this shared space. And then I think it was a kind of crisis in Bezalel, because all our community, Jews and Arabs, experienced fear and death. We heard it from Sharon before. Fear of death and unbearable pain about everything. And many lost friends and relatives in Israel and in Gaza. We have faculty that actually have relatives in Gaza that were hurt during this time. And they have to come and work together. And some of our students are still evacuated from their home. Although people came back, some are still homeless and at this time. And it was tough for our students in these conditions to keep empathy for others. I think this was the thing, because it was like for them the worst experience that they had in their life. And they were we didn't teach in those times. We were at home, and they wanted to have empathy from their colleagues, but they couldn't get it because nobody can be empathic to the other. And especially between the Palestinians and the Jews, but even inside the Jewish communities, we felt it, and we dealt with complaints. I think in the first 2 weeks, like Sharon told us. And we consulted a lot our colleagues from Tel Aviv University, but I think I think we didn't have so many complaints, and it was equal between the Jewish and the Palestinians in Bezalel, and most of them went to educational process. So, but I think it hurts a lot the feeling of shared space, and. I think that we understood that in order to go back to teach and learn together, we have to create new infrastructure for shared space and shared life on the campus. And it was very complex, because shared space is based on the possibility of holding together the experience of belonging and safeguarding of all members of the community, and the possibility of fully expressing the identity and ideas of each and every one. And it was very difficult to hold this both together, and we have to choose if we are really give everybody the permission to express everything, what are the limits, and how the other part could feel safe in these conditions. And this is what we try to understand. But also we understood, I think, dealing with these complaints through the educational progress, that we have to advance civic education and shared living as our core mission and part of the academic programs. Because we can't assume that people understand what does it mean. And I think they confuse sometimes feeling not very comfortable with feeling something which is make them being not safe, actually. So we have to try to understand it. So we did a few things. First, even before the war, during the beginning of the juridical reform, we moved to our new campus, and we put a clear public statement on the academy entrance. This is the only entrance. We have no fences. You just came from the city to Bezalel. And we are saying Bezalel Academy of Arts and Design Jerusalem is based on principles of human dignity, equality, pluralism, and freedom of thought, speech, and creative expression. We felt that in those times we have to state it. You can think whatever you want outside of the academy, but when you come in, you have to be part of these core values. And we can discuss it, but we can't cross the lines of those values. And like everything in Bezalel, it's in 3 languages and it's in our public space. The second thing was, before coming back to teach, we need to create accessible guidelines to enhance the norms and cultures that we want to sustain. And Merav will talk a little bit about it, but especially to explain what you can do. Not just saying what you are not allowed to do, but we felt that in the political environment in Israel, we have to say what you can do and why we have to allow you to do that. And the third was a vote by the Bezalel Senate. It's the higher academic committee in Bezalel to foster civic shared living education as an integral learning outcome within all the academic programs. And actually to understand ourselves more as an educational institution, and that we have a role in our academic programs to talk about that through the learning outcomes. So when we are talking about civic education, is to creating an infrastructure for our students to gain knowledge and competencies required to be active, critical, and influential citizens. Citizens can identify, articulate, and engage with social and political problems. Citizens who can act out of responsibility to create change and the commitment to active participation in political life based on equity, freedom, and partnership of all citizens and non-citizens in defining the common good. So this was one part of that. And shared living meant creating an infrastructure for acquiring the knowledge, competencies, and values required for living together in a diverse and polarized societies based on human dignity, equality, fairness, tolerance, and solidarity between individuals and different social groups, while providing trust and legitimacy for the definition of each person's self-identity and self-fulfillment. It was crucial for us. So I will just skip that, but we started with that this year, and what we actually did, we embedded, we didn't want to open new
Could you go
program.
back to that slide, please?
Okay. That was the principles, okay? And I think that we are dealing with the freedom of the academic freedom of our faculty to teach what they want to teach. But our decision is not to open new courses that our students will not take or take not very seriously, but to take the core studies of each department where they are really involved emotionally. And this is why they are learning in those courses, and to try to understand how we can build the briefs in order to let them get all these learning outcomes. So for example...
Can you just explain what political education means?
Yes, that we don't want to, want to be ideological in order to say our students what they have to think. But we want to open a space where they can discuss their opinions and to understand how they articulate their own ideas. And if they are feeling that they don't agree with somebody, how can they discuss it? And so it's not, I think that they are coming from the K-12 system, they don't have those competencies. And I think that they don't know a lot about the Israeli society, about political issues, about what are the liberal values, why they are not perfect, but they are good enough to work with. So this is part of the discussion. Yes. Okay, so I will skip those examples, but we started to do it in different areas, in the extracurricular and the curricular part. And I will move it to Merav.
Thank you, Liat. I will talk about the pedagogical aspect of it and the challenges that come with it. How we actually can support and sustain such a thing or such an ambitious goal, and at the same time maintain academic excellence in our core mission, which is to teach or to foster the next generation of cultural leaders in Israel and even in the world. And the foundation of our beliefs is the idea that not only that learning and teaching, art and design is a transformative process, it has to allow a space where students can actually feel uncomfortable, challenge norms, think critically, and this is part of actually political education, is actually to be able to think critically and constantly ask questions, doubt everything, but also when we're talking about art and design, we're talking about, Liat was talking about the intimacy, and we want to add to that fragility, vulnerability, issues of identity, belonging, what is my community, what is my background related to, my future art and so forth. And maybe add to that, what is the role of the designer and the artist today in society? So from that kind of ecosystem or that kind of environment, you could actually already understand that we're already sitting on a barrel of explosives. I mean, we want to shake the core beliefs of our students in order to enable them to be better artists and better designers and better cultural leaders. And from the point of view of the Center for Teaching and Learning, we have our teachers, our faculty, who are mostly, I think that more than 90% of them, they come from the practice, they're practitioners, they are themselves leading artists and designers. So they are not, teachers or professional teachers, and they come to teach very, very, I think, with a lot of love and with a lot of respect to the place and to the students and to their mission. And suddenly they're requested to become social workers or maybe psychologists and educators. And we want to, again, allow this a very, very diverse environment where you could, offer them different models and different ideas of who they can become. And suddenly we are situated in such a contested place, in such contested times. I mean, as Liat said, in Israel, it's always war. Okay, so I will jump ahead and say that from our point of view, we developed a lot of tools. I'll be very, very happy to share them with you later on. We are doing a lot of work with the trainers, but I want to, at the moment, focus on what happened after October 7th. And as Sharon said, the few weeks were just, everybody were in shock. We're trying to collect their thoughts and understanding of, from here further, what are we going to do? How we are going to actually reconnect what was broken and come back to what we call Bezalel continues, and how we have a very, very visual example of what it means to continue, where red became, there's the red alert and red as blood. And will we ever be able to perceive and experience red as a color? Will we be able to perceive clay or earth as something that is not always associated with, our trauma and our pain and whatever comes with it? We understood very, very clearly, working with management, of course, that this is going to be extremely messy. We don't know anything, but we're going to do our best, and we're going to foster hope. And to do that, we realized that the first thing we need is to have guidelines. We did a very thorough process where we engaged all stakeholders, students, Arab and Jews, faculty, administration, and started asking questions, what would be our guidelines of this very, very unique place? And we realized that our guidelines to the guidelines would be not what not to say, but how to allow as much expression as possible. Then the responsibility shifts from you have to hold yourself not to express what you feel or what you think, rather than to you have to hold yourself and stay in an uncomfortable place where you experience something that makes you feel threatened, uncomfortable, uneasy, and stay there and not immediately move into action. It has to be 3 languages, and of course, even more important, and this is what the students' feedback was, it has to be digital. Don't send us emails. Don't send us PDF files. It has to be completely accessible by phone. It has to be completely approachable, and it has to be very, very clear. Tell us what the law says. So what we did is a very interactive mini site, and you can all see it on the Bezalel website. Thank you.
Your name,
Amira. First of all, thank you very much. I would like first, I can't avoid saying it when you're talking about Bezalel, about my personal link to Bezalel, which is the Yom Kippur War. The Yom Kippur War 73, the brother, my father's brother, he died in Yom Kippur War, and he wanted to start in Bezalel when he was 21. Unfortunately, he was killed in a battle. And there is a scholarship that I'm giving every year in Bezalel to a student in this department that you're working in. So I have good contacts with the Bezalel and the management, and we can discuss it later. But so actually being there almost every year, giving this scholarship, and I know the students and I'm familiar with the environment. The interesting thing looking at these students for me is how creativity has been shaped and changed after October 7th, because like you talked about the ceramics and using all these materials, and you have to be very creative and creative thinking and all of this, how this has changed and whether creativity within the art has changed. Yeah, the ability actually to continue creating and be.
I think it's quite changing through the last 3 years. I think in the first year when we came we didn't know at the beginning if we will have like the final exhibition. And I think that actually the students and the faculty were eager to came back to create something. But in a way they left every international, I think, trends and became very minor and very, I think, honest in their own work. We could see quite a change to smaller things, but now I think it started to be, and it wasn't very direct to their experience at the beginning. It was just this melancholy that were there. I think that in the last exhibition we saw that they started to deal with the experience of the last 2 years. But I feel that everything is very open.
It's a process, and it's an ongoing process. I mean, processing something like that, and it's not in a vacuum in the sense that there's, AI and global warming and a lot of very, very strong powers that shape reality at the moment. And they're young people, and they're completely immersed in what's going on in the world and how they need to react to it. I think that we do see a lot of crawling into oneself a little bit more and being more engaged or interested in craft, in the material, in something that is more tangible. But at the same time, being such a diverse environment, there is not one type of a student. So their identities are very different, and the way they process things are very different.
Maybe I will just say politically that in the first year I met monthly the Palestinian student, and they told me we will do only butterflies. We will not be political. You will not hear from me anything honest. And at the end they did very political. So
it's interesting whether there's also a division between in gender contexts, whether female and male create differently in these times. So can I see how many people wants to ask? So I can. That's a lot. So we will take 2 in a row. Okay. So let's try this.
So my question is to
Your
Sharon.
name, please.
My name is Moran Roy. My question is to Sharon. What was the chilling effect that emerged from the process you described, and how do you think it can be done differently in retrospect?
Wait, just let's take another one and then yes. Hi.
My name is Nadine Strassen. I'm from the United States, and I want to thank all of you for your extraordinary work, very inspiring. We think we have challenges in terms of division and polarization, and you really add a whole new layer of depth to that. So my question is about what I understand to be a basic difference between Israeli college students and American, and please forgive my ignorance if this is not accurate, but I believe that most of them do military service before they come to university. And I would think that that would make a difference in terms of their, number one, maturity, but number two, their experience of working together with a cross-section of most of the society, the elements of society that do participate in military service. So I had always, maybe I'm idealizing it, but I thought that that would be basic practice in civic discourse and engaging with different. Okay, so I really I'd really love to know about that.
That's a really romantic view of army service. Okay. Yes.
So maybe I'll start with you and I'll combine both questions. So the military service refers only to the Jews.
I know.
So in Tel Aviv
I
University,
think Jews disagree with each other. Forgive me if I'm wrong about that.
in Tel Aviv University we had 5,000 Arab Israeli or Palestinian Israeli students and 5,000 people in military reserves. Okay. So it means military reserves mean that some of them carry guns, more weapons. And this was a debate as well. What do you do in campus? I mean, can you tell them not to bring the weapons? The answer is no, because a lot of people are during their military reserves. So you try not to expose it very much. It's easier with pistols, it's harder with real guns, and it escalates the conflict. Also, what escalates is it's the outfit, right? I mean, the outfit also religious Muslim women covered, obviously it makes it's more visible. Chilling effect. I feel in my classroom, okay, and it's not only about me, that Palestinian Israeli students don't come to classes as before. Unlike Bezalel, that you have to be in class, because of the reserves and other things, we went to hybrid, Zoom, and other options that are not required them physically to be in class. And also comparing with teaching, I was teaching before October 7th and after October 7th, I don't hear much views in terms of freedom of expression, they lower their voices. So people avoid speaking about the conflict, and which is not a good news, I think, in general. And maybe later on Barak wants to refer to this, because I think what happened is that what you actually predicted, that Palestinian Israeli students are minimizing themselves to some extent.
I would add just from my personal experience as a professor at the university, again, as I said, I'm 1 out of 5 from 790 professors, Jewish professors. We're only 5 professors. When I entered Bar-Ilan 10 years ago, we were only 3. And the first thing that I did, speaking about chilling effect, is that I approached my vice dean and asked him not to teach the course that I've been teaching for 7 years, multiculturalism and minority rights, which is very much challenging in daily life. And this is another thing that I want to say. Shared society is examined actually in times of turbulence, in times of crisis. And it was very challenging as a Palestinian to enter such a course anyway. And the other thing that I asked is whether I can teach online, because I was scared to come to campus. I was scared to speak in Arabic when I live in Haifa and travel to Bar-Ilan near Tel Aviv. I was scared to talk on the telephone. And specifically, when the campus is very much militarized with weapons and guns, even before the 7th of October, I taught a seminar, and there were 3 settlers. One was carrying a gun the whole time. Every time you went out, I froze. But this is kind of the sick, normalized reality that we live in. And when I approached the rector of the university, speaking with him about this, and he says, "You didn't understand what I'm talking about. Like, why weapon is threatening?" And it was during 2021 events. So one of the problems is even before the 7th of October that our campuses are very much militarized. It's very challenging to be a student as well as a professor in these realities. I have a lot of more questions to you, but I will give the floor to, I saw just a minute, Anat, and then...
So I'll just stand up because I want to see you guys. Thanks a lot for excellent presentations. It was illuminating, really. And I think that from Hebrew University. And I think that what I was most impressed with was the actions taken in Bezalel that you presented, which really join what Ayala and I will present later on today. We provided with a more legal framework of a quasi-social rights, creating a dynamic between freedom of expression, equality, and dignity. And I think that this is what you did with your policies, which are really, really amazing. It's not a balance, it's a dynamic, and how to work with the 3 together, not one of account on another. So that was great. But I have a question there. And I know from Ido that you had, issues that came before Bezalel that were very challenging in a sense, students expressing very hard ideas that you helped to deal with in administrative proceedings, etc. And I'm wondering how, alongside these very beautiful programs that you developed that try to create a dynamic, how did you deal with these hard cases? How did you try to create that dynamic over there? So if you can give an example or something, that would be great.
Maybe I'll start.
We'll take another question and then you can answer. You had a question?
Yes, my name is Kati Galor and I'm from Brown University. And again, I think the whole conference, this goal of engaging this topic of academic freedom is amazing. The panel is amazing. We have a Palestinian panelist, a chair. We had a Palestinian participant who had to withdraw for very understandable reasons. We're talking about equity and diversity and balance. And I think the one thing that was really missing is the inequality, the asymmetry of the political reality. That we do operate in a Jewish state where the majority of Palestinians were displaced, where there are demographic policies that dictate the proportion of Palestinian residents and citizens in the country. Nobody acknowledged the fact that we have a whole conference, a full day, with 2 parallel sessions, and we had one Palestinian presenter who had to withdraw. I think it was very laudable that Sharon mentioned that they consulted a practicing Muslim to evaluate the comment, the quotation from the Quran. I cannot imagine if there was a Jewish Israeli quoting from the Tanakh or Talmud, approaching a practicing Jew, an Orthodox Jew, to comment on a quote, that anyone would be satisfied. I mean, if we have only one practicing Muslim to comment on a quote from the Quran, that in itself is very problematic. I mean, we should consult, whether practicing or secular, but someone who actually engages the political and social meaning and context of the quote. And what I'm really missing here is that someone will acknowledge the asymmetry that we're dealing with. And Nadine tried to do this, and I really applaud her, because the asymmetry is very visible. And first of all, the majority body of the students are Israeli Jews who serve in the army. So why does no one acknowledge it? And I think this is very important.
I need to say, just for the defense of Roya and the organizing committee, that I was also supposed to present, but I'm on sabbatical and I came for just 2 weeks for Christmas. And I asked him not to present because I have too much on my... And Muhammad, yes, Muhammad talked to me yesterday because I was the one who pushed him to present in the first place. And one of the things that bothered him and me during the last year is that it's recorded, and someone can have cherry picking and sadly this is also my dilemma. But so I can understand Muhammad for not doing that. But you're right. But there were some efforts to have another approach, just to say on the defense of the organizing committee. And thank you for the comment. So. Anat, you can answer Anat's question for number 4. Sorry.
First of all, I want to thank you for your comment. I think that you point out or shed light on something that I think that being within the process, I will speak only for myself. Sometimes I take for granted, and I totally identify with what you're saying. And thank you for bringing it up and mentioning it. And I will go further to Yael's question about the Einat. Sorry. And as I mentioned, the process was messy. And what you're referring to was a messy process and a very, very steep progress and learning curve for everybody. I mean, we felt very, very shattered and confused ourselves. And from that point of view, it was an extremely humbling experience of realizing we have to revisit all our policies and all our protocols and all our actually values, and we have to re-examine them and come back with something better. So during this process or this learning curves, I think that with all academic institutions, there were many mistakes that has been done, but at the same time, I mean, it's sad to say because I wish these events would have never happened, but at the same time, it enabled us to maybe be more thorough with our stance and with our responsibility and with our self-realization is in what is our role in society and for our students and for our faculty. So the same way that the COVID-19 was a great, enabler for everybody to learn about distant learning. I mean, it's not the same, but it is the same from an organizational point of view.
So we have another 4 minutes, so I'll take another 2 questions.
I'm Stephen Sussman from Barry University in Miami, Florida. Excuse me. 2 points. I don't know whether it's a question, but identity. I think, how do we identify? About 20 years ago, I had a Palestinian student in my class. Her family had moved to Florida and she went to school. She's in my class. At the end of the term, she wrote a letter to the dean telling her how much she enjoyed the class, and it was the first time she ever had an Israeli actually not pointing a gun at her. Number one, I'm not an Israeli. So the identity of being Jewish, she looked at as being Israeli, which was interesting. Secondly, so it's just a comment I wanted to throw out there. Secondly, 3 years ago, I was a visiting scholar at the Spot Academic College, 60% Arab. My class, including a third of the class, were law students. 75% of my class were Arab. And it was just wanted to say that. And I was told by the person who brought me in, don't treat anyone any different. If you have something on your mind, if you can talk about conflict, anything you want. It was a course on public policy, comparing U.S. policy, U.S. public policy making to Israeli public policy making, which I learned is very odd, but that's another story. Anyway, I just wanted to make that comment.
I think also that...
We have another question over there, yes.
My name's Andy Lester from the United States. Each one of you mentioned something I was surprised to hear, which was K through 12 doesn't prepare the students to deal with these types of issues. Well, I mean, that's a problem I see at home. I was surprised to hear it here. I guess 2 quick questions. One, are there things that you believe higher education can do to help K through 12 deal with that? And then what do you do when you receive the students, since they are not prepared to deal with some of these political types of discussions?
So we have 1 minute.
Solve the world's problem.
Maybe I can say that the K-12 system right now doesn't prepare our students to anything, not just for civic education. It's really, and if we are seeing surveys of what the young people in Israel think, but also in the States, we see that we are dealing with a very, I think, deep problem that we need to work with. And maybe to say that and to Einat, that I think that we are making mistakes every day. It's not just in the first 2 weeks we made mistakes that I'm taking responsibility for, But I think that when I talk with faculty and say it is going to be messy, I mean that it's complex and we are all complicit. And we have to acknowledge that we are complicit in everything that was happened in the last few years. And we have to work with this as a material in order to educate. And how you are doing education process with understanding that this is the situation. It's asymmetric, it's very violent. We don't have the K-12 system to work with us. We are working in a way against our government right now. And we have to continue doing that.
I will just add that our case system, just like the United States, is very segregated, not only between Jews and Palestinians, but also within the Jewish society. And in some cases, some Jewish groups do not meet other, like secular and religious, only when they get to the army. So, yeah.
So,
Sharon has
thank you for the question. I would say yes, we are a segregated community. Tel Aviv University at this stage is doing outreach to high schools to try to underrepresent communities, and we're working also on shared spaces, shared society events together, but it's a big issue.
Thank you so much for your personal